Welcome to yet another edition of What is BattleTech? Today we'll be focusing on the lore of the franchise. Alright, thank you all for tuning in to another BattleTech video with us today. This is going to be another lore video. Well, this is going to be a video about the lore, sorry.
Yeah.
Whereas our other What is BattleTech was kind of like a surface overview of the whole thing. This is going to be more about some of the lore and where you can find the lore, because there's so much more to the game than just the miniatures on the map, if you want it to be.
The miniatures on the map look good.
The miniatures on the map
As
do
we
look
have
good.
shown in our unboxing videos.
Yeah, they do look good, and there's nothing wrong with just stopping with those. But for those of you, that want to know the background, that want to know, the origins of the Atlas or the Griffin or House Kirita or the clans or any of that business,
Or the Mad Cat.
or the Mad Cat, there's more lore than some of you could probably read in a lifetime.
You might be able to find where the Phoenix Hawk came from.
Yeah, I mean, it's out there somewhere. So the beginning point should probably be the inner sphere itself. Now this is the inner sphere as of 3025.
Pause the video, people. Try to guess the houses yourself for a moment.
Yeah.
And which ones are favorites.
Yeah. So starting up here, we have House Steiner. One quick note: each of the various realms essentially has two names. They have the house that rules them, as well as the name of the realm itself, similar to in England, where the monarchy is not the House of England. I want to say it's the House of Windsor, but I could be wrong on that.
Sounds right to me.
I don't follow the British aristocracy.
I'm not British, but it does sound right to me.
But the point is,
any British people out there, comment down below if we're wrong.
Right, or like how the Habsburgs ruled several countries at various points, things like that. So, House Steiner rules the Lyran Commonwealth. House Kirita rules the Draconis Combine. House Davian rules the Federated Sons. House Lau rules the Capellan Confederation. And House Merrick rules the Free Worlds League. And then in the very center there is Terra, which is controlled by Comstar, which is space AT&T with an army.
Of giant stompy robots.
Yes, of giant stompy robots. So anyway, this is where things stood as of 3025. Very shortly after this, these two realms merged to create the Federated Commonwealth with the marriage of Hans Davian and I want to say Melissa Steiner. Could be wrong on that. They did have a number of children, various Steiner Davians. The main ones are Victor Steiner Davian and it's either Catherine or Katrina. I apologize.
I think it's Katrina.
But anyway, upon their wedding, they immediately launched a war to try to destroy the Capellan Confederation. They did chew up several worlds, but they ultimately failed. And then in 3039, they launched a war against the Draconis Combine, which also failed. And then in 3050, the clans came plowing through right here. So, anyway, these are the five major powers that the story typically revolves around. There's a number of periphery powers out here. You've got
in
ones,
the aptly named periphery states.
Yes. And, there's each of them, they have their own deal. They all have backstories, names, cultures, paint schemes for their battle mechs. Like they're all viable choices for the game because they all have enemies.
Down over here somewhere is the Magistry of Canopus.
Yeah, Magistry. I always mispronounce it, but it's like Magistracy or something like that. I'll show you how it's spelled sometime.
I pronounce words wrong all the time.
Yeah,
so Magistria Canopus.
Yeah, that's how I usually say it, but I know that's not the correct.
By the way, the one place that proves there's cat girls in the universe.
Yeah, it's via cybernetic enhancements, but they do exist there. You'll have people that claim, oh, that's not canon, but it's in one of the books. It's canon. So anyway, over, I believe here is the Taurian Concordant. They're very much a get off my property. Your warning's going to be the mushroom cloud that goes off in your face.
Yeah. They appeared in the BattleTech game by Harebrained Schemes.
Yeah, they're
as a antagonist state.
Yeah, they're as far as they're concerned, House Davian is responsible for all evils in the known universe. So,
I gotta agree with that.
But anyway, so the periphery powers, they've all got a little flavor to them. I don't know exactly where it is on here. It's got to be over here somewhere. Is the Marian Hegemony, which is basically space Rome, founded by an Irishman, if I recall correctly. It's bizarre. But anyway.
The Protectorate of Donegal is also somewhere in here.
Yeah.
Also founded by an Irishman.
Yeah. So you get a lot of things. And that's kind of the other thing is the cultures of these are modern cultures extrapolated into the future. They're not, the clans were the attempt at doing something new and different. These are, this is space Japan, space England and France, space China and Russia,
Soviet Russia,
somewhat space America, because they do kind
mixed
of
with space UN.
Yeah, because they do kind of have there's some elements of democracy here.
They fight amongst themselves,
but they fight
right up until an outside force shows up, and then they fight them. Yeah. And then once that war's done, they fight themselves again.
And then space Germany, despite its founding.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so they all have their various flavors, and they have their favored mechs. A handful of them have mechs that only they possess, depending on what point in the timeline you're at, because eventually almost every mech becomes available to everybody via salvage. So yeah, but anyway, these are the 5 major powers, and if you played the Harebrained Schemes video, somewhere in here is House Arano, which is canonized into the game, into this, via one of the books like this, which there are handbooks for each of the 5 houses, plus House Arano, plus there's one for the major periphery powers. So these detail everything up through, I believe, somewhere around the FedCom Civil War, so like 30, 67, 68, somewhere in there.
The best thing that ever happened to the Federated Commonwealth.
So
they excised the Davian taint.
So they cover pretty much like from the founding of their realm, or just before, up to that point. So these books have a lot of details, a lot of information, talk about past rulers, major industries, major planets that are part of it. Like I haven't got around to reading House Steiner and Davian yet, because I just picked up the books over the weekend at Gen Con. But I know I'd be quite surprised if there's not a page or 2 on Hesperus 2 in here, which is like the factory world for House Steiner, where they produce all kinds of fun battle mechs like the Atlas. So, and then, naturally House Davian will have all of their stuff. There's probably some notes in here about the Space Pope, which, yes, at some point in the future, the Pope moves everything from Earth to the Davian capital. At the current point in the timeline, House Kurita murdered the Space Pope because they will not allow any religions other than, I believe it's Shinto Buddhism. So, similar to our current real-world troubles, just taken into the future.
And these books are written from the view of trying to brief the new rulers?
Yes, these are all written to be like a historical treatise on the founding of the realm and the history of the realm up till now, and are given as a gift to whoever the current ruler is, just depending on which one it is as far as who's the perspective it's written from. And then you'll note that this one is a Fan Pro product, They were the company while WizKids was making the Clicky Tech game, and WizKids label's also on here. They were the ones who were allowed to keep continuing BattleTech, which at the time was called Classic BattleTech, for that very reason. Now, once that went away and Catalyst took over, then you went back to just calling it BattleTech, like on the boxes here, and like on this book right here, which is one of the other major lore sources. These are called the Technical Readouts, or TROs. Now this one is supposed to be for the War of 3039, but it's actually a combination of a number of books to try to get them all together, because it includes vehicles and battle mechs, and this was one of the last newer ones that went with a year designation, because like it has the vehicles, I believe, from the 3025 and 3026.
Like the Warrior H-7 attack helicopter.
Yeah, also all the artwork in here now is now outdated, because it is all being updated right now for the mechs and vehicles for the Kickstarters. The Clan Invasion Kickstarter updated a lot of the artwork, and now the Mercenaries Kickstarter coming up is going to update even more.
You have a scale drawing.
Yeah, to kind of show you the difference. You know, you go from your tank to your mech, you know, to give you an idea of size, but also your mechs compared to your drop ships. So, yeah. As far as I don't see a person on there somewhere, but you can guesstimate based on the size of the tanks. But yeah, here we go. There's a
Right
person
there.
right there.
They're tiny.
Yeah. So that's the way the technical readouts were being made. Now they're like this. It's a little bit different format. You can see there's the more cohesive name branding, you know, where we have the chevron kind of deal here in the middle of the BattleTech name. And now they go by era instead of by years, like this. So everything that's in here is in a couple of other books, because they did publish one for 3045 and 3050, I believe, or 3050 and 3051, something like that. So all the ones in here are from those, as well as a number of others. In fact, if you pick any of these up, if you have the older ones on the back, and usually in a better description of the product online, it'll tell you what all they're from, because there's one for the Dark Age, there's one for the Succession Wars, the Clan Invasion, and the Jihad. I don't believe there's not one for the Ill Clan yet, because there's no new material out yet. That'll probably be from the what Catalyst has online, their rec guides, where they updated these mechs from the Kickstarter to modern configurations for 3151. But yeah, like, you know, the one on the cover here, if you can see this, is a Republic of the Sphere mech. And by the end of the Dark Age, there is no more Republic of the Sphere. So, yeah. But as you can see, the artwork is a little bit more advanced now. You know, it's up to you whether you prefer that or not. You know, I personally think there's a little bit to the nostalgia of the older artwork. But, you know, modern sensibilities have changed. So yeah, like during the Dark Age, you had several, I believe they were referred to as totem mechs.
Yeah.
Because there's a long stretch of peace, so people were able to go for less utilitarian and more exotic designs. Like this is a Jade Falcon mech.
And more personal to a faction designs.
Yeah.
Because that one was clearly a Jade Falcon mech.
Right, like this one here is the Tiburon, which is a Sea Fox mech. But yeah. So you run into stuff like that. Once you get into the later era, I'll try to find you a real good example here. Oh, here's one particular standout of the Dark Age era. This is the Raider. Every battle mech you come across is powered by a fusion engine, not this one.
Which means the fusion engine lets you core the mech, as in you get a good shot on the fusion engine and
Yeah, that's actually a lot more in the novels and video games than actual game rules, but yes,
Yes.
that is a potential thing. Uh, so this is run by an internal combustion engine,
It's an ice mech.
which meant that you could manufacture them much easier. But also limits the kind of weapons you could have. Like I think they don't have any kind of laser weapons on them because they can't sustain the power output. Uh, but yeah, that was
So,
created.
so it's analog, not digital.
Yeah, those were created by a man named Jacob Banson, who was an industrialist who decided that he wanted to get into the big game, and try to either buy or fight his way into the royalty. And yeah, he tried to make a deal with House Lau and then kind of disappeared and is probably dead.
Yeah, probably is, because he disappeared after making a deal with House Lau.
Yeah. He was going to marry Ilsa Lau Centreo, who is the sister of the ruler of the Capellan Confederation. And then he found out that inheritance is through the wife, so if anything happened to him, all of his stuff would revert to her, which basically means revert to the state. That's when he got cold feet, made a run for it, and then kind of disappeared. So the clans aren't the only ones who went in for heavily stylized mechs. This is a House Kirita mech, the Shiro, very clearly meant to look like a samurai. This thing is very limited. Whenever I speak of mechs that are probably only for one faction, this would be one, because there's only a handful of them, and they're only given to people above certain rank. So for someone else to possess one, it would be a rare moment to actually kill the person piloting one of these and capture it. And even rarer still for House Kirita to just let that happen and let you get away with it. They would probably send their secret commandos in to destroy it and you.
So, if that's House Kirita's, where's House Steiner's?
Well,
Like, do they have a super fancy looking Mac?
No, I don't think so.
Right, they just get Legions of Atlas.
House Steiner just makes like big clunky things.
Like the Atlas.
Yeah, well, this is a House Steiner machine. The Zeus. This is a variant of the Zeus. But there's nothing like in appearance. There's nothing that just says House Steiner. I don't know.
Maybe it's because since they have the biggest factory output of the houses, they're making it and selling it to other people and making money.
Yeah,
The C bills.
could be.
For they can send those short messages.
Yeah. So then here's another Jade Falcon. One here, the Shrike. This is their assault mech. So at present, most of these that look like this are only available as metal miniatures. Here's the Atlas 3.
I don't like the look of it, folks. It does not look like an Atlas.
But yeah, and then not all the clan mechs went crazy town. This is a clan mech, clan assault mech, the Jupiter.
Yeah, not Crazy Town.
It doesn't look like
The
a big,
shoulder pads.
It doesn't. Those aren't shoulder pads. Those are rocket launchers.
Yes.
No, that's what I mean is it doesn't look like a big bird.
Not all of them go look like big birds. Ooh.
And then you have
There's a Steiner mech if I ever saw one.
this is a Republic of the Inner Sphere mech. This is a super heavy, one of the mechs that violates the 100-ton limit. But yeah, there's a few of them here. The Poseidon, the Ares.
Hera,
Yeah, this goes through the different configurations because it's really only a few different parts.
Hephaestus.
But all of those are tripod mechs, and they're super heavies. They clock in at 135 tons.
Not the only super heavies that exist, but the other two models I know about are prototypes.
Sorry, the Ares is 135. The Poseidon's 125. So, but yeah, and then there's a couple others that I believe were actually Word of Blake mechs. So, anyway, that's the kind of things you find in the technical readouts, and you have like little blurbs about famous pilots. It's usually something about the design, like what they were going for, where they're manufactured, things like that. There's a bunch of interesting little things in here, and some of them are actually quite humorous. Like in the 3039, there's one for it's some kind of scout car that has a radio that mentions that there's a guy that takes his from planet to planet broadcasting illegal broadcasts within the Capellan Confederation from like free space from elsewhere, trying to convince people to rise up against the Capellans.
In other words, it's probably Steiner funding that guy.
No, it's Davian. Steiner doesn't care about House Lau.
Steiner cares about money, though.
Yeah, but House Lau isn't one of their neighbors. I don't care what happens to him.
This is true. This is very true.
Yeah, as far as when it comes to enemies, it's typically who you're neighbors with. Those are your enemies. Now, like the Free Worlds League and the Capellan border doesn't get anywhere near as much attention as like the Capellans and the Davians.
Or Curitas and Steiners.
Because, for better or worse, the Free Worlds League, basically everyone kind of forgets they even exist half the time when it comes to the fiction. So, because the other four factions, I guess, are just more interesting. I don't know. But they seem to basically forget they're even a thing half the time. So it's like the Capellans spend all their time fighting the Davians, and there's never really some massive incursion from House Merrick. Meanwhile, the Capellans will send in their commandos and whatnot to try to keep House Merrick off their game. Now, late in the Dark Age time period, House Steiner did invade House Merrick with the help of Clan Wolf, which ended up kind of backfiring on them.
Only slightly.
Yeah, it only cost them the Archon. So,
but they have a new one.
That's beside the point.
Who did the smart thing. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
And what? She ran.
Putting Roderick Steiner in charge of the army.
Yeah.
Hero blood, you know?
Yeah. So, anyway, as the timeline progresses, the technology increases, and it becomes less...
Look what you did.
Yeah, well, you know, people putting stuff right in front of me. As the timeline progresses, you know, it becomes less Mad Max in space, like where it starts out in 3025. You kind of get away from the feel of hereditary medieval knights passing down their armor from generation to generation. Here it's the machines themselves. By the time the clans invade, some people in the Inner Sphere are still using machines from before the fall of the Star League, which would be 300 years prior in the setting.
But if they're well maintained, they're probably better than most new things.
Yeah, but they, for the most part, will not have the advanced systems anymore because they can't make the parts.
This is true.
Because that's part of the deal is that as the timeline progresses, the first two major wars, the first two succession wars, every faction took the view of if we can't have it, no one can. So they nuked everything they could if they couldn't keep it. And so a lot of their advanced weapons got destroyed because they used them, and they got either destroyed or they experienced wear and tear. And then as more and more critical infrastructure was being destroyed, they couldn't make replacements. And then it got to a point where even if they could, you'd face a moment where it's like, well, we can make more land-air mechs, or instead, we can make twice as many just regular ground mechs. And so you just make the twice as many ground mechs because you can train.
Slap jump jets on them.
Because you can train mech warriors faster than you can train land-air mech pilots. So it just becomes a numbers game eventually.
Oh, that does bring something up, people. Some of the video games in the BattleTech universe are called Mech Warrior. So,
yeah, any product you see that has the Mech Warrior name is part of the BattleTech franchise. This applies to, as Chad mentioned, the video game series on the computer, Mech Warrior 1 through 5. Although I've never actually seen Mech Warrior 1. Like, I know it has to exist, because I started with Mech Warrior 2, but I've never actually seen it or played it. But Mech Warriors 2, 3, and 4 are older computer games. 2, at least, is a DOS game.
That's putting age on it.
And so for those games, like the second game is I believe just before the clan invasion, and you play as either a Jade Falcon or a Wolf, or you just play through it again as the other one, working your way up through the ranks, trying to prove that you're good enough for the invasion. If I recall correctly, it has been over 20 years since I played the game. Mech Warrior 3 is you're part of the task force from the Inner Sphere going to destroy Clan Smoke Jaguar. And then Mech Warrior 4, you're on one of the planets that gets torn apart by the FedCom Civil War. I don't know about Mech Warrior 5. It's a more recent one, and I haven't played it yet, so I don't know where it falls in the timeline, and if you have the same level of modifiability as you do in the others. Because in the others, you can modify everything with the battle mechs. You can change the internal structure components. You can change the engines, change the weapons. You know, like once you know what the mission's going to be, you can modify your mech to deal with that.
There's a Mech Warrior Online as well, I believe.
Yeah, there's also Mech Warrior Online. I don't know if it has a plot, and if it does, if it's canon to anything. So
I think it's just an excuse to pilot around giant stompy mechs and shoot other giant stompy mechs.
Probably.
But then again, sort of the other Mech Warrior games, they just have the plot overlaid.
Yeah. And then as you move forward, you also had the two Mech Assault games on the Xbox. They're good games. There's not much variability in the mechs. Usually, like for each mech, there'll be one or two variants you can choose from, but you can't go in and actually modify them. But it is really fun running around in the little battle armor and ripping people out of the cockpit and taking their mechs. So, plus, I believe I think it's the second one. The entire soundtrack is by Papa Roach. So,
how does someone in battle armor fit in the cockpit of a mech?
I believe you jump out of the battle armor.
No, that ain't happening.
Yeah, that's what you do.
That sounds like a bad idea, folks.
No, you climb up to the top. You got to hack into the mech so you can open up the cockpit, kill the dude inside. Then you open up your battle armor so you can climb out of it and into the mech.
Sounds like a bad idea to me. Just stay in the battle armor.
No, the mech can cause way more devastation. Like, the battle armor is specifically for that. Like, you're not going to take down a whole giant base with just a little rinky-dink battle armor.
You can take down all the mechs.
Well, no, eventually one of them's going to shoot you.
Disable one, move to the next. Disable it, move to the next.
That's only going to work for, like, two of them. Like, eventually the other mechs are going to start shooting at you, and one of them will hit you. Like, battle armor are not invincible, and definitely.
I've played the tabletop game. I've played the Harebrained Schemes game. I know the probability of hitting something.
Yeah, it's high.
Something small and moving quickly is not going to get hit as easily.
It is whenever the bullets are as big as the battle armor itself.
But they're still moving quickly. That makes it harder to hit.
They don't move anywhere near as fast as battle mechs do.
They should.
Well, no, they shouldn't. The battle mech's 40 feet tall. Think about how tall its legs are. Like, it's going to outpace you in no time. You know, it's like the same concept of trying to outrun like a brontosaurus. It doesn't even have to run. Because of the length of its legs, it's going to outpace you.
I'm just saying, that brief moment you're outside that battle armor, you're more vulnerable than in the battle armor. So why get out of the battle armor?
Because you're going to take the battle mech.
Won't make the armor slimmer where it fits inside.
Well, no, the cockpits are tiny. Plus, excuse me.
No air conditioning.
No air conditioning.
Yeah, the artwork showing Mech Warriors where they're like wearing very little in the cockpits, probably accurate because there is no air conditioning in them.
Yes, because as the battle mechs function, the heat from their fusion engine begins increasing. So that translates to heat in the cockpit as well.
Mm-hmm. Because air conditioning is an unnecessary component, apparently.
I think it's more a matter of like, it's like one of the restaurants I used to work at. Like, it had an air conditioner in the kitchen, it just really didn't matter because it's fighting an uphill battle, you know. So it's a matter of like, I'm assuming there is an air conditioner, but it doesn't do any good once the heat really starts pouring on.
Nah, it's probably gonna be like an LLV for the post office. You just got a little fan hanging there blowing in your face.
No, I think it is an air conditioner because they do have coolant vests and stuff like that. But again, it's one of those like, eventually the heat is too much. You know, like you're doing everything you can, and that keeps you cool during like regular functions while you're just slowly walking along. But the moment you get into battle, like,
and start firing everything,
it starts getting hotter and hotter. Yeah. So that's one reason why you try to avoid doing the old alpha strike if you can help it.
Alpha strike all the time.
That's how you get your mech shut down, is someone coming up and just shooting you from behind, or clawing in with their battle armor and killing you.
Oh, if it's shut down, they ain't gonna get it going again.
Yeah, they are. They're gonna override the computer. That's part of the hacking part, because they have to override your command word and your brainwave pattern too. Because the mechs can tell, you lock that in so it knows it's you, and there's a password to turn them on. So whenever you hack them with the battle armor, you have to override all that.
So no key with the lucky rabbit foot on it
No.
to get the ICE engine going?
No, it's personalized, and it has to do with your brain waves that the neuro helmet picks up. So, but yeah, so that is pretty much a couple of ways that you can find information. There are a whole host of novels set all over the place in the timeline. They just finished the trilogy of the founding of the clans, which would start around 2750. Whereas they also have novels that take place in 3150. So they're filling in gaps back in the past and timeline because it's a massive universe and there's all kinds of stuff they could fill in. But they're also still moving forward slowly. In fact, I think the Dark Age timeline, I think the game spent the most amount of real world time in the Dark Age compared to any other era, because there was a lot of things they had to wrap up and they had to figure out where they were going. And so once they did that, then they had to get the plot, they had to wrap up the Dark Age plot to set up what's now the Ill Clan era, and then begin moving forward with it. They didn't just want to shoot blindly. So it took a while, but now the Dark Age timeline is over, and we are now in the Ill Clan era.
There are mechs that aren't for combat, people, although that one has been weaponized. It is clearly some sort of construction mech that has been weaponized.
Well, what is it?
I don't know.
I mean,
But you can see where the crane goes.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't really look like that. I think that's actually a battle mech.
Then why does it have a spot for a crane? And why does it look like a pork crane?
Well, just hang on a second. Like, look at the guns. Look how actually embedded those look.
Yeah, they swapped out the forearms.
Now, just hang on a second. Let's see if one of the more ridiculous ones is actually in here or not.
The Cattleman?
Here we go. This is what a jury-rigged battle mech looks like.
It's not jerry-rigged.
Like, this is clearly for chopping down trees.
Yeah. Tree, mech, not much difference.
Very much difference.
Gravity's still going to affect them.
Gravity's going to affect them. Chainsaw's designed to cut through wood, not armor plating.
We don't, look, you're cutting through like giant sequoias at that point. So yes, it's pretty much similar.
No, it's still wood compared to some composite material designed to withstand a bomb hitting it. I mean, they're not
Bomb
they're not at
is
all.
over an area. Chainsaw's focused.
I know, but unlike the dumb logic that Warhammer 40K uses, like chainsaws are a very terrible thing to try to cut through armor. Like armor is designed to withstand impacts and heat.
Those teeth are made out of very special material in Warhammer 40k on the chain swords. Actually, they're like a regenerating metal or something because they never really replace the teeth on. Well, no, they do. Certain ones have regenerating teeth on them.
Okay, well, these are not. Okay, these are designed to cut through trees.
How big are trees, though?
I don't know.
The size of a mech?
No, probably just pine trees. Remember, we're in a silly universe that thinks bipedal war machines will actually work. Okay?
They will.
No, they won't. They're too tall. Tanks will just knock them down.
Maybe if you had a Bane blade.
Anyway, so you see them just like kind of thrown together cannon here. And I wish they had some of the others in here. I would show you what they look like. There's none in there.
Are you sure?
I am positive. But yeah, so they made yeah, that's an urban mech.
Yeah.
That's an urban. It's for fighting.
It's for police actions, not fighting.
You don't arm police actions with an autocannon. That's for fighting in the city.
You can also put a nuke on them.
Yeah, which is also not for police actions.
Yes, it is, according to some factions.
Yeah, no, that mech is actually designed for fighting.
It's hard to believe.
Well, it is. There's a 2C version of it for the clans.
What?
Yeah, the clans have an urban mech 2C.
Why?
Because the urban mech.
Why?
Because the urban mech's awesome. See, like here's a militia mech. Okay. Like, I don't know what's going on with this thing. It's honestly the first time I ever looked it up. But yeah, you know, this is just some four-legged thing, so it's more stable. So the pilot has to probably be less trained. It just has like a gun on it here, maybe two, depending on what the armament is, all clustered together. Let's see. Yeah, that's 3 ER medium lasers, and it's in the turret. Yeah, that's it. That's the armament right there. So, best. Unfortunately, the best example I don't have a picture of because I didn't think we were going to go down that road. But essentially, imagine a dump truck. Only it walks on 2 legs.
Yes.
So the body of the truck, without the wheels, but walking on 2 legs. Then imagine it has like a boom arm, but instead of the scooper, there's a rotary autocannon on it, and in the bed of the truck are a bunch of tubes for dumbfire missiles, rockets. Yeah, so that is that's one that doesn't yet have a regular BattleTech miniature. It had a ClickyTech miniature. The forestry mech mod, though, it does have a metal miniature. And there's a few of the others do. I think one of the mining mechs does. But yeah, essentially, at the beginning of the conflict in the Dark Ages, the Dark Age timeline, a lot of factions emerged that just had to fight with what they had, so they took industrial mechs and just strapped weapons to them. Because even though they're not war machines, you know, like a modern bulldozer, even though it's not a war machine, it wouldn't take much to make it basically bullet and bomb proof. So, you know, it wouldn't take much to actually weaponize it, which is what you see in other parts of the world at the moment. You know, they call them technicals, I do believe.
Yes, the Toyota truck people.
Yes, the Toyota Helix with the 50 caliber in the back. In fact, given the names of some of the companies,
That still might be a thing.
Toyota probably still exists in the BattleTech timeline, and
Probably still making the Helix.
probably still make the Helix. But yeah, like I know General Motors is a company in here. Nissan. I think Northrop Grumman might still be.
I think Ford is.
It's debatable if they're the same companies or if it's just kind of a joke, but I'm assuming they're the same companies.
Makes sense to me that they're the same companies.
So yeah, so that's the kind of little inside jokes you run into with these. Also, there's a bunch of stuff like that kind of peppered throughout these technical readouts. But anyway, that's some other things you can look at if you want to know more about the ins and outs of the BattleTech universe. And like we said, there's the major eras, so the stuff does change. The technical readouts, like I said, now are going by era. You can still find these that have the years, and a collection of these will be more complete than these, because these are compilations of some of the parts of these. So also, if you're going to buy them, if you buy the ones that have the years on them, if you have the choice, you typically want to buy, like the one for 3050 has a 3050 and a 3050 upgrade. The upgrade has more stuff in it, so you probably want to buy that one. The only thing you're potentially missing out on is a few of the older ones will have the what they call the unseen mechs, which all deals with a lawsuit from way back when, where the good folks at FASA thought they had the rights to use the designs from a number of anime series, notably Macross and Robotech. And then another company said, well, no, you don't. Lawsuit, money, and then they had to stop using them. So they had to stop using the artwork for them, which meant that a number of classic designs just kind of stopped, and they became known as the Unseen. Eventually they were replaced with the Project Phoenix look, which is because they wanted to still use the mechs, but they had to give them a different enough appearance that they could use them. And then more recently, another round of lawsuit action, thanks to the Harebrained Studios game, only this time BattleTech emerged victorious.
Well, Harebrained Schemes and Microsoft emerged victorious.
But their
BattleTech sweeping the windfall of it.
But their victory, they ensured that it was such that it applied to the entire franchise. Mm-hmm. So that allowed Catalyst to go ahead with their redesigns of the mechs. And so now now they just call them the classics now, I think is the terminology they use online. And we're supposed to look at it as retroactively, that is how they have always looked. So that replaces the old artwork. And most of them do look in line. You know, like you can tell, like the Marauder was one of them. And you can tell, looking at the new Marauder, clearly it's heavily inspired by the old one. And we'll do a video because I actually have a set of plastics, the Unseens, so we can show you the differences between some of them. Yeah, so now they're going through and updating the artwork. So for something like some of the TROs, we'll have the older artwork if you can find them. But if you don't care about that, I would aim for the upgrades, like I said. And you want to watch for ones like this 3039, because this is actually this is everything that was in TRO 3025 revised and technical readout 3026 revised and other stuff. So this is a combination of this is everything. This didn't leave stuff out, except for the stuff they couldn't show because it's the unseen artwork. This has bits and pieces of, let's see, technical readout 3075, 3085, and its supplemental 3145, 3150, irregulars, and prototypes. So there's bits and pieces from all over. And I own 3145 and 3150, and I can tell you everything from those two is not in here. So this is a kind of a best of, an overview. So these will be incomplete, the ones that go by the era. So if you want everything, you want the numbered ones. But again, you want to probably get the upgrades because they have more stuff in them. So, anyway, and at this point in time, it might be difficult to find some of these in print. Go to like Drive Through RPG. They have a print on demand for some of these things. But otherwise, Catalyst, either through their website or through Drive Through RPG, you can get the PDFs for most of them if you just don't care about a physical copy. Just as a quick note on that, if you're going to buy any BattleTech books in PDF, if you're going to be paying full price no matter what you do, buy them through Catalyst, because any kind of errata or updates they do, you get that for free. So, to me, if you're paying full price anyway, it's worth it so you have that as well. Because not so much with these books, but like with their rule books, whenever they release new editions, new printings, they include any errata that they've had. So that's how you stay up to date. Now, none of the errata is major. Like, the game is almost exactly the same as it was back in the 80s. But there are occasional changes, like to the BattleTech guys.
Phoenix Hawk.
Well, not just the Phoenix Hawk, but all of them. The land air mechs. I don't know because I wasn't playing at the time, but apparently they suffered a major nerf somewhere along the way. So now they're still they have a use, but they're not the dominant force they could have been. Something to do with like the number of critical slots things take up in the mech, and they can't use certain advanced technologies. So I don't know. If I ever get around to actually using them in classic BattleTech, once I figure out which rule book the rules are in, because it's not the main books, it's like strategic operations or interstellar operations or something. Then I'll do that. But otherwise, you know, for alphastrike, it's real simple. Are you in jet mode or ground mode? Jet mode. Oh, how many map sheets can I fly over?
Well,
You know.
with the whole critical slots thing, you do have to have room for that transformation cog.
Right, and that was part of it, because let's say it's the Wasp. Well, I don't know if the land air mech is the same tonnage, but if it is, clearly you had to take something out to put the transforming parts in. So, you know, you do that as a trade-off. And so in general, also, they're not as good as a mech of the same weight, and they're not as good as an aerospace fighter of the same weight. They have a different role than both of those. You know, their role is more battlefield harassment. It's a mech that can move as fast as an aerospace fighter. So it can cover, like, I'm not joking when I say how many map sheets can you go across. You know, like, that's what you do. Get behind the enemy, convert to robot mode, start shooting them in the back, and then before they can shoot back, get it back out of there. You know, or you find their artillery and go harass it. Or, like, if they have assets on the ground, if you can get to them before they take off. You know, like, there's uses for them. It's just people think that you can use them as like a straight up, I'm going to get into a gunfight with another battle mech. Like, if you've done that, you've lost. Like, give up now. Unless it's an urban mech. Then maybe. Because they're tiny. But, yeah, so that's the short deal about the land air mechs. So, yeah. Although I think the most creative use I saw for them is in either the first or second Succession War handbook, which, that's the other thing. There's some books kind of like this that cover specific events. There's one for each of the first two Succession Wars, one for the Wars of Reaving among the clans, one for Operation Klondike for the clans, which was where, after the Exodus fleet landed on the Pentagon worlds, then there was a rebellion, so there was the second Exodus that went to Strana Mechti. Well, Operation Klondike was whenever those guys came back to the Pentagon worlds to conquer and begin the clans. So there's a whole dense book about that, and it's an excellent book if you want to know about the prehistory of the clans. And the Wars of Reaving is after the clan invasion, where the homeworld clans thought the clans that had gone to the inner sphere had become irreversibly tainted, and so they begin a purity spiral death battle. And it's also a really good book if you want to know about the clans. But the first two Succession Wars books Like, you want to see like the level of destruction that they leveled at each other. That's what you should check out. But yeah, so real brief there. It was a space battle. The guy converted all of his land-air mechs to air mode and sent them out with the fighters to loop around the backside of the enemy carrier, and then on the return trip, turned into robot mode, got on board, destroyed the ship from the inside. So yeah, quite a thing. But yeah, so those are the kind of books you should be looking for if you want to know some of the more in-depth lore. The older books, like you saw here, are black and white, whereas a couple of the newer ones have more colored pages in them. That's just a cost of printing thing, I imagine. I don't know for sure.
It would be.
So-
Color costs more. You got have more set up to get it printed in color.
Well, sure. But
Well,
I mean,
it used to,
sure.
because it'd be a plate per color.
Right. No, I get that it is an increased cost. I'm just saying, like, there's nothing that's telling me that Catalyst is somehow making money hand over fist versus FASA, who had the franchise for 20 years. You know, so I'm saying I think it was a deliberate choice at some point, and probably not to do with cost. Whereas now, I don't know. So that's speculation on my part. I don't know. FASA's economics in their BattleTech games doesn't make any sense. The real economics probably make less sense. So, but anyway, I'd like to thank you folks for watching through all this, and we will endeavor to have more content like this. If you haven't checked them out, we do have unboxing videos of the 2 newest box sets here that should be on the market sometime here in the next few months, as well as the other 3 box sets that are presently on the market. And we have our other kind of overview of the franchise, more from the gaming perspective video
Yeah.
that you folks might want to check out. And all of those will be up here somewhere in
Hopefully.
the ether if we do it all right. So, but yeah, keep an eye out. We will definitely be doing more BattleTech content. Just got to kind of decide where we're going with things. If we're going to deep dive into the factions or into the individual chunks of the timeline, maybe the novels, but I don't know.
Individual mechs.
Yeah, maybe. So anyway, keep an eye out. If you like what you saw, feel free to comment. I mean, I can't stop you from commenting, but
Feel free to do it.
yeah,
Like, subscribe.
all
We appreciate all of it.
those things. Share it out there. All the YouTube things that y'all know we're gonna beg you to do at some point in the video. So here's the sales pitch. We're gonna have more stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, thanks again, and have a good one.
See you guys next time.